It all started when my family and I moved into an old, forgotten mansion. We had found a deal that seemed too good to be true. The house was massive, standing in the middle of nowhere, and despite its worn-down appearance, it felt like we had struck gold. We ignored the rumors about the previous owners mysteriously vanishing. After all, who believes in small-town gossip? Our first few days were peaceful. My kids ran through the dusty halls, their laughter filling the once-abandoned mansion with life. We were happy, at least for a while. But then, things started to change. It was the fourth night when I first noticed it. Subtle sounds at first. The creaking of floorboards, whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. We brushed it off as the house settling, or maybe just our imaginations playing tricks on us. But the noises didn't stop. They got worse. One night, I woke up in the middle of the night to the faint sound of crying. Thinking it was my youngest daughter, I went to check on her, only to find both of my children fast asleep in their beds. The crying continued, echoing through the walls, louder and more desperate. It was as if someone was trapped within the house, their sobs growing more frantic with every passing minute. I wasn't the only one hearing things. A few nights later, my husband, Mark, woke up around 3 a.m., startled by footsteps echoing in the hallway outside our bedroom. He grabbed a flashlight and went to investigate. When he stepped into the hallway, the air was so cold that I could see his breath as he exhaled. He said he saw a figure, a tall, shadowy figure, standing at the end of the hall, right outside our daughter's room. He called out, thinking it was an intruder, but the figure didn't move. It just stood there, watching. Then, in an instant, it vanished into the wall. Mark rushed into our daughter's room, but she was still sound asleep, completely unaware of what had just been standing outside her door. Weeks passed, and things kept getting worse. One day, while exploring the basement, we found something we hadn't seen before. A hidden door, concealed behind a stack of old furniture. It was small and barely noticeable, as if someone had gone to great lengths to hide it. When we finally managed to open it, the smell of dampness hit us hard. The room inside was cold and dark, its walls covered in strange symbols we didn't recognize. In the corner, there was a small, dusty bed. The mattress was rotting, but it looked as if someone had been sleeping there recently. That night, I woke up to a nightmare I couldn't escape. The same symbols from the basement were scrawled all over the walls of our bedroom. They were written in something that looked like dirt or blood. I couldn't tell. We knew then that we had to leave. We started packing the next morning, planning to be gone by dawn. But the house wasn't going to let us leave that easily. Just a few hours before dawn, the power went out, plunging the entire mansion into total darkness. The doors slammed shut on their own, locking us inside. And from deep within the house, I heard it again. Those same chilling sobs that had haunted me since the first night. The house seemed to come alive around us. The walls felt like they were closing in, suffocating us. Mark managed to break a window, and we scrambled out into the cold night air. As we ran, we could hear footsteps behind us, and a low growl echoed through the wind. We didn't stop running until the house was far behind us, disappearing into the fog. We never went back. To this day, that mansion stands abandoned, waiting for its next victims. Some houses are more than just bricks and mortar. Some houses are alive, feeding off the fear of those who enter. So if you ever find yourself in front of an old, seemingly perfect mansion, remember this: it may not be as empty as it seems. I didn't believe in ghosts. Not really, at least. The stories people told always seemed exaggerated, distant. But that was before I moved into that house. The house that changed everything. It was an old Victorian-style home, tucked away on a quiet street, surrounded by thick trees that kept it hidden from view. I had just gotten a new job in the city and needed a place to stay, and this house seemed perfect. It had character, and despite its age, there was something about it that felt comforting. Or so I thought. The first night was uneventful. I unpacked some boxes, made myself dinner, and went to bed early. The house was eerily quiet, almost too quiet. No creaks, no settling noises, just dead silence. I remember thinking how strange it was for an old house to be so still. The next day, I started noticing little things. The first thing was the smell. It was faint at first, like something sweet. Too sweet. It reminded me of flowers, but not the kind you'd find in a garden. More like the kind you find at funerals. I thought it was just the musty smell of an old house. But as the days went by, the scent grew stronger. And it wasn't just in one room. It seemed to follow me wherever I went. Then there were the cold spots. I would walk into a room and suddenly feel a chill so intense that it made my skin crawl. It wasn't a draft. These cold spots would appear and disappear in the middle of the room, far from any windows or doors. I'd stand there, feeling the temperature drop by what had to be 10 degrees, and then, just as quickly as it came, it would vanish. I tried to ignore it. I figured it was just the quirks of an old house. But then, things started getting weirder. At night, I would hear footsteps. They would start on the floor above me, slow and deliberate, like someone was pacing back and forth. I'd hold my breath, listening, my heart pounding in my chest. The footsteps would stop for a while, and just when I thought it was over, I'd hear them again. This time closer, always closer. One night, I finally got the courage to go upstairs and check. I grabbed a flashlight and slowly made my way up, the stairs creaking under my weight. When I reached the landing, I shone the light down the hallway. Nothing. No one was there. But the air was freezing, colder than it had ever been before. I could see my breath hanging in the air like mist. That's when I saw it. A shadow, moving at the end of the hallway. It was quick, just a flicker in the corner of my eye. I spun around, shining the flashlight in every direction, but there was nothing there. My heart was racing, my hands shaking. I stood frozen for a moment, then ran back downstairs, locking my bedroom door behind me. After that night, the activity escalated. Objects would move on their own, small things at first, like keys or a book. But then larger things started to shift. Chairs would be pulled out from the dining room table, picture frames would tilt, and doors would slam shut without warning. I'd hear whispers at night, faint but unmistakable, like someone was trying to speak to me through the walls. One evening, I came home from work to find every single cabinet door in the kitchen wide open. I remember standing in the doorway, staring in disbelief. I knew I hadn't left them like that. As I walked through the kitchen to close them, I felt it. The unmistakable sensation of being watched. I spun around, but of course, there was no one there. The final straw came a few nights later. I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, when I felt the bed shift as if someone had sat down at the foot of it. My entire body went cold. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of something pressing down on the mattress near my feet. Slowly, I turned my head to look, and that's when I saw it. An impression in the blankets, like someone was sitting there, watching me. I don't know how long I lay there, frozen in terror. But eventually, the weight lifted, and the impression vanished. I got out of bed, grabbed my keys, and left the house that night. I didn't even bother to pack. I drove to a friend's place and stayed there for the next few days while I tried to figure out what to do. I never went back to that house. I don't know what was there, but I couldn't live with it any longer. I sold the place, taking a loss just to be rid of it. Whoever or whatever haunted that home, it didn't want me there. And after everything I experienced, I wasn't going to stick around to find out what would happen if I stayed. I used to be a skeptic, but not anymore. Ghosts, spirits, whatever you want to call them, they're real. And they're not always friendly.